it interested me that someone can actually kill, you know.
That would.
But to me, I looked at it as weakness because I could kill, but it's like to me, it's harder not to a certain degree.
It sounds like this was actually in an interesting way. This is more of a comfortable situation for you to deal with than the mental health clinic.
Oh, for sure. Because I felt like, okay, maybe these guys can get rehabilitation because these could be my friends and stuff. And it was almost like a big play yard, to be honest, out in the streets, out in the hood. You know, I knew how to play dominoes, they call bones, and I just knew the culture. And then also with the breakdancing and stuff, the music. And,
interesting.
But you see the culture.
You see the culture.
Right. And there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of lost talent in prison. It's so sad.
I would like to introduce you to my guest, Danny Hester. Danny Hester is the first ever Classic Physique Olympia champion. But what you may not know is that it took him 40 years to accomplish that. And in that 40 years, Danny Hester did a lot. He was a celebrity trainer. He was a nurse for a mental health clinic, a prison guard. He has continued on his journey to accomplish many things. I can't even list them all out right now because it's so much, and you're gonna really enjoy this conversation. I certainly did. So, come join us. This is Danny Hester, and this is how Danny Hester is making his mark. We're gonna start off by peeling the layers of you, what has made you. We're gonna talk about some of the obstacles that you overcame. So let's start early on. You are originally from Thailand, so tell me a little bit more about...
Well, I was born in Thailand.
Right,
My father was American, my mother was Thai. He was in Thailand because he worked for the CIA during the Vietnam War. And my grandfather was police chief of Bangkok, and so he worked with the CIA a lot, and that's how he met my mother. And my mother used to do a lot of things, but she was a translator for in different languages for dubbing movies.
How many languages?
At least 4 languages, including English. And so I'm sure she had a part in the war too, working. And
really fast. So she helped with dubbing and translating. Did that help with some of the people in the war with the entertainment? That's what I think. So she was basically helping with entertainment when people were in war.
Possibly, yeah.
Okay, all right, that's cool.
Yeah.
All right.
And then so my dad died during the war in service of our country. And so my mom had 5 kids and one she was pregnant with. And they thought it was going to be a girl. And because they didn't have the ultrasounds back then, and then so she had a couple boys in a row already, and so when he passed away,
and really fast, he was working for the CIA, and he died in a plane crash.
Yes.
And how old were you?
I was almost 2.
So you didn't even get to meet him, really.
No.
Got it.
I don't think I remember anything, but we have like 8mm film and stuff like that.
Okay.
So sometimes, I think like if you're 2, I think you remember things. I don't know, but
well, you would know if you remembered things.
Well, yeah, I don't know if I remember him through film or my own memories.
Okay.
So she moved out. Luckily, he was, did well in real estate. He's doing a lot of property in Ventura County, which is between Malibu and Santa Barbara by the coast. And so my mom moved back to the States, took all the kids. She was pregnant, and then 8 months pregnant, and then she had my brother, Billy, which is named after my father.
Okay.
I think they were going to name her Mary if it was a girl. And then it ended up being a boy, so she named it after my father.
So your mom had 5 kids that she took care of as a single mother?
6.
6?
Yeah, the new one. She was pregnant when my father died.
6 kids. And she did that all by herself?
Pretty much. My sisters were older. They
and they
were
kind of
like
out?
almost 10 years older, and then there was another 3. So they kind of helped.
You were like
a
team.
Yeah.
Like you were like a team. Okay.
Yeah, I guess you can say that. And so, I think that's why I just saw how tough she was to a certain degree, because as a woman, barely spoke English. I could understand it more than she could speak, which, sometimes that worked to her advantage, because she got to see how people really are, thinking she doesn't understand. She just doesn't speak it well, but she definitely can understand. And
did you feel like you wanted to protect her at all? In that environment?
Always. I mean, she's my mom.
She's your mom.
Being a mom, you want to do that. Your mom, you want to do that. But I just saw, how people didn't respect a woman, a foreign woman on top of it, and she was tiny. So, but she was tough though. She
was strict.
Around. Yeah, we would go my father owned apartments and property, so she would go and collect rent from people. Especially the ones that were late, and she would bring us along.
Yeah.
And I remember going with her, and one time someone opened the door and they were late for rent, and they tried to intimidate her with a big old dog, like a Rottweiler or something. And she's like, "I'm not scared of your dog. You pay rent or you go." Going, wow.
So you had a lot of admiration for your mom. You saw her be tough, and you had a lot of respect, and you felt that
I mean, back then I just thought that's just how you have to be.
Got it. But there was probably instinctually a part of you that was like, that's my mom. Like, that's my mom.
Later on I think more so. But I think it really kept as far as me, just being the underdog. Seeing the underdog just go through adversity. So for me it was I almost really enjoy being the underdog because I like the challenge.
Yes.
We're
going to talk about that.
Yeah. I think that's one of the big, drivers as far as things that drive me is being the underdog.
I definitely want to talk about that because there are some things within the underdog story that I want to touch on.
Yeah.
But I do want to first set the stage because you did a lot of athletics. How early on did you start athletics, and what did you start with?
Well, all my brothers...
Was it martial arts or wrestling?
They liked team sports, baseball, football.
Yes, and you didn't.
No, not at all.
Why?
I just saw there's a lot of politics. If the coach didn't like you or his son played the same position, even though you were better, you're not getting playing time.
You wanted to be in control.
Yeah, I
of your own
wanted. If
destiny.
you win, you could be the best player, and you never win because you're on a team that sucks.
Did you
or
experience
vice versa.
a team sport where that happened to you, or was this from observation?
Observation, and probably it happened to me too.
Okay.
So I liked individual sports.
Yeah.
So you can kind of control your own destiny. That's why I was in gymnastics, martial arts, wrestling, bodybuilding. They're all individual sports. You win or lose, it's kind of to a certain degree, up to you. So, and that's probably the thing that I like about.
The interesting thing for me is it doesn't sound like you actually experienced a situation where you had politics or a coach favor somebody else.
Oh yeah, no, I did too.
Okay, tell me about that. Tell me about that.
Like they're kids,
You did, but
got to play, or
Okay.
they paid more attention because, in football or baseball, the dads would come out and they'd be help coach the team or be a coach. And then so, you never had someone come out on your behalf, so you were just kind of there. And so you didn't get politics of your parents going in there, so why isn't my kid playing or whatever. You just watch and try to do your best and almost just show them oh, okay, this guy's playing over me, let me get in that next play. And show them, show everybody I should be playing. But if that's not the case, whatever. At least I proved myself,
Yeah.
And so I think getting into sports was probably a big way of, for myself, maybe for my brothers, is having some mentorship, like a father figure. So that I think we were always wanting to do some type of sports, especially for a guy, a male.
Right.
So you kind of wanted that approval. You wanted to excel.
Do you think you recognized that back then, or are you reflecting on that, thinking?
No, I kind of recognized it back then.
You recognized that,
Yeah.
so you knew that you were kind of searching for that maybe that void that you were.
Right, I was always looking to older kids, assistant coaches or whatever, or even in martial arts, older.
Was there one that
was,
particularly had a big influence on you? that you can think
In
of?
different ways.
Okay.
I think in high school, where it really came into play was like the wrestling coach.
Your wrestling coach?
Yeah, and I jumped around a lot. I went, not so much because I got in trouble, but because I wanted to. I went to like different elementary schools, different grade schools, different junior high schools, different high schools. So I kind of knew like everyone in the city,
Yeah.
where most people had their own little areas and they don't know too many people from other schools. You know, I went to like 3 or 4 different proms, I remember. So, yeah.
You asked the girls? You asked like 3 or 4 different girls to prom, or they, or
Both.
Okay. So you
Yeah.
you had girls asking you to prom too.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're a little bit of a
Well, it was, no, not necessarily for even just like dating part. Is just because I was fun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was more just, let's go and check out this place.
Yeah.
You know?
Would you consider yourself to be somebody who, I don't want to say the word loner, but were you, or loner or popular are not good words to use, but you know what I'm saying? Did you have a big crew of people that you hung out with, or did you like to kind of be more isolated?
Well, interestingly, I was a loner that was popular.
I relate to that, actually. That's actually how I was too.
Yeah.
I totally relate to that.
And I could fit in a lot of different groups.
Same.
Yeah.
Same.
And I almost didn't like to be associated with just one group.
We would have gotten along.
Yeah.
That's so funny. That's how I was too.
Yeah, and that helps a lot. I mean, not that you're a chameleon, but you kind of know how to flow, and you're kind of
very
good at a lot
independent.
of things.
Well, the thing about you is that you want to be able to rely on just yourself. You want the discipline and the effort that you put in to be able to show through in your results. You don't want to have to rely on anybody. And kind of the same thing with your friend circles, right? You don't want to have to depend on anybody for your happiness or, popularity. You're kind of your own person. Yeah. And if people can be included in that, great, right? Right.
And I always, showed loyalty and showed appreciation, and I was very generous too.
Yeah.
So I learned early that it's all about your network.
Yeah.
Like someone might not like you, or you're not sure they like you. So the way you kind of do it is to help them with your network.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm curious about something. I'm getting this feeling that you kind of put up a wall and you avoided things that could cause heartbreak in like your high school, colleges. Can you trace back in that time of your life where you felt like some type of heartbreak or where somebody let you down?
I don't know. I don't think it was anything different, I guess. I can only speak from my perspective.
Yeah.
But I don't like being disrespected.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I feel I'm not getting the just attention or accolades or whatever,
and the reason
or appreciation,
the reason I'm asking this is because you are your own person, and you're not like clicking with anybody. You're just happy, isolated, and then you include yourself in groups.
Yeah.
Almost like there's a wall, like you're not attaching to anybody. You're not going out of your way to like form like strong attachments, but you have lots of friendships, lots of people that you can intermingle with.
Yeah.
But there's something going on where you're not like specifically attaching. So
possibly.
Maybe, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but you did find a lot of success in athletics, in high school, in college. In college, you were mainly doing wrestling, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But even before then, I was on the world stage for a lot of different reasons. Because I was in gymnastics and martial arts.
Yeah, tell me.
And I was one of the best breakdancers in the world at one time when it first came out. That was my generation that
Of course you were.
Yeah, I had a manager. I was on American Bandstand, MTV,
What?
Soul Train. Yeah.
Shut up.
I choreographed and opened for the 1984 opening ceremonies for the Olympics here when it was in the Coliseum. Yeah, I toured with Run DMC, Fat Boys, all those rappers back in the day.
No way.
Yeah.
Danny!
I used to go to competitions, and I was very well-rounded.
I did not know this about you.
Yeah, I was very well-rounded in just all forms of breakdancing, because you had the locking, and then you had the popping, and then you had the floor, which was the breakdancing.
I'm gonna have to see some of these moves. But hang on, hang on.
You better talk to my knee about that.
You just unloaded
Yeah.
a whole can of worms for me, okay?
But my point is, I was on the world stage,
Yes.
and at a high level, so I was used to performing already.
Wow.
So when
That's
bodybuilding
amazing.
came along, I was already comfortable.
Okay, we're gonna
just
get
walking
there.
in front of people, the judges, the people.
We're gonna get there, but hang on. You did all these performances, you know, Run DMC.
Yeah, when I
you're
was like
Soul
12,
Train.
13 years old.
Tell me the performance that you would call the highlight performance of your whole career of dancing.
I don't know, because a lot of stuff I found out in the entertainment business, especially when you have like TV cameras and stuff,
Yeah.
it's not like glamour, it's just work.
Yeah.
You're getting rushed in on the stage, and you have like a set person that organizing things, and it's kind of like
So you
not
don't have
fun.
like a glorified memory of it all.
Maybe with Dick Clark, the original set of American Bandstand. I mean,
Okay.
it was old. It's like from like the 50s.
Yeah.
And it was literally right before they moved to another set. And
Okay.
then Dick Clark retired, because he was doing it in the 50s. Like Elvis and just everybody. He used to interview him. I don't know, remember American Bandstand?
I
The
don't-
show? You Google it. You YouTube anything.
That sounds
Yeah.
amazing. That sounds amazing.
Back then on the radio, you had just like DJs.
Right.
Like main DJs. And they
Yes.
could make or break you as far as a musician, you know, if they wanted to play your stuff. So they had a lot of power. And Dick Clark was a very popular DJ that formed into a TV show for like before MTV.
But your performance that you can remember where it was just electrifying. You connected with your audience, and you felt, and you trace back to it, and it's just like it still makes you feel electric inside.
It would have to be the smaller ones, not the bigger ones.
That
when
would
I was
make-
more
that makes
starting out
sense.
on Venice Beach.
Yeah,
so
that
I have
makes sense.
a long history in Venice Beach
Okay.
for before bodybuilding. You
Tell
know,
me.
'cause I trained at Gold's Venice, and that's where I started. And
Tell me.
I lived right there by the Muscle Pit when I first moved out here to Venice. You know.
Well, hang on, because you
but
you decided that you want to do bodybuilding, and then you decided to move to Venice to be around.
yeah, but I was already in Venice before that when I was breakdancing, when I was a kid.
Got it.
So we used to come out here because that's where all the breakdancing happened.
Yes.
It's like the main hub is Venice Beach.
Okay.
You know, and you had a lot of, people filming stuff all the time. And, I used to get hired
fun.
for commercials and things like that.
How fun is that?
Yeah. And so I was very fortunate. Like, once again, we were talking about, I was very well-rounded. So I can literally, like when you have a breakdancing crew, you have a bunch of guys that specialize in one move that were really good. So they'd send out one guy to do head spins or whatever. And then you'd send out your guy that does it, and you challenge each other. Another guy comes out, and I could pretty much do all of them very well. So I used to actually battle whole groups by myself.
Well, okay, so let's actually backtrack and let's talk about some of the darker stuff, because you said that when I asked you some of your highlights, it sounds like when you look back at it, you're remembering more of the
street dancing.
more of the stress part of it. So you're not the fun side of it, but the part of it that kind of gave you a little bit more stress and maybe wasn't quite like so highlight about the breakdancing and the street dancing and all the shows that you were on. So what are some of the struggles that you faced when you did the dancing?
The struggles?
Struggles.
I don't know. I really enjoyed it, and I got to apply like a lot of my gymnastics and martial arts in it, and that's why I excelled really fast. Because because breakdancing came from the East Coast,
Okay.
and then they weren't that great, but they were very with the clothing,
Right.
and the almost what they call swag.
Yeah.
But when it came to the West Coast, we took it to power moves.
I want
and-
to see that. Did
it
you
was
ever
more
get,
athleticism involved when it came here.
Did you ever get hurt?
Oh, all the time.
All the time?
Yeah, so I was used to getting hurt. Same thing with training. It's just part of being an athlete.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Yeah.
true. So, but you eventually, something caused you to have to kind of leave that chapter, right?
Yeah, because I was at the highest level, And it got so popular where it went mainstream, where you got these little rich kids booking commercials doing like half-ass moves. And you're just like, what?
You're like,
Because they're
that's
trying
not
to
what
sell
we do.
product to middle America.
Right.
And they didn't want like the guys that
That really knew what you were.
were the elites.
Right.
Right?
And
It
that
didn't
was you.
matter to them. So
How did that make you feel?
In a way, it made me feel like it wasn't worth the effort anymore. You know, like that
Your
era was done.
level wasn't getting rewarded.
Right.
Right.
They couldn't tell the difference. And I was like, wow, okay.
Frustrating.
Right.
Yeah.
So in a way, coming back full circle with the bodybuilding thing, I felt a little bit of that too. I'm like, oh, with all these new divisions and blah, 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 it going like more mainstream because of social media, is it gonna not be? Because when I started, it was more of like a cult, like not a whole lot of people did it.
You started in the early 90s.
80s.
You started in the 80s.
Yeah. My first show was 1988, competing.
I just thought you were younger. Okay.
Yeah.
So you-
55.
So you started in the 80s,
Yeah.
and your bodybuilding career, you were always so marketable.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted Danny Hester for everything,
Yeah.
but you never got your pro card.
No.
And so, did you feel like
Back then, yeah, I
what
didn't.
kept you going?
Because I wasn't doing it for that. And as a matter
Okay.
of fact, I didn't.
You were
I'm also went to nursing school, so I have my background in nursing.
right.
So I think coming from a clinical kind of point, of it, I knew what people were doing and the repercussions of it. And for me, my fitness was the most important thing.
Right.
I mean, it just
And
not,
you were getting rewarded. You had you were
Right.
getting like the covers of magazines,
Yeah,
and you were getting
honestly, I think a lot had to do with me being in Venice.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if I was some kid in Iowa or
Yeah.
wherever, where it was just the magazines, you couldn't do your own posts
Right.
and make millions of followers back then. You had to be seen, and to be seen was
Yeah.
in the magazines or doing shows, so the magazines would pay attention to
Yeah.
you. You know, and maybe someone would fly you out, like, Jay Cutler got flown out from
Right.
Ohio or wherever he's from, Boston, I'm sorry.
Right.
And to live in Venice because he was competing and doing well. So then the owner of Gold's flew him out. And
I would argue that you were winning by being so marketable. I mean, being out in the
Yeah.
spotlight more than some of the pros even probably. So
Right. No, I was. I was making more money than most of the pros
Yeah.
and had contracts and endorsements and stuff back then. And I was living the life, to be honest with you. I wish I would have invested better back then.
I want to talk about how you did. You were a clinical nurse and you worked in a mental
Yeah, I
health.
worked in a mental
Okay.
hospital.
Was there something that drove you to want to work in that field? What was something fascinated you about it?
My mom was administration at that hospital.
Okay.
So she had some clout.
Okay.
And so, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do when I was wrestling in college afterwards. And I was always interested in health
Was
and
there-
fitness.
right, right.
So that connected to the nursing part of it.
Right.
And then there was an opening at the state hospital, mental hospital. It was huge at the time.
Okay.
That's when the government really used to finance mental health, which they don't anymore, and that's why you see the homeless. But that's a whole nother story. And so, Camarillo State Hospital on the West Coast worked directly with UCLA.
Okay.
So they did a lot of pioneering of mental health, studies and stuff. And Bellevue in the East Coast was very world famous.
Okay.
So those were the most famous mental hospitals, I would have to say, almost in the world. And so when I went and was a nurse at that hospital, I was young too. All my friends were going to clubs, they were working, whatever regular jobs. And here I am seeing like things that I've never seen. You don't even see it on TV because some of these cases were very rare too.
Yeah.
I mean, they had stuff like autistic geriatrics, which autistic people don't live that long.
Wow.
And they had just, you name it, it was a trip.
Did that affect
the people
you?
with I forgot what it's called, but cephal something. It's like the little tiny heads and the big bodies,
yeah.
and they just had so many in their wards of the state because they, the families didn't know how to take care of them.
Wow.
And so they lived there, and so I learned a lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did that affect you?
It did. It was a little too dark
That
for
would
me.
affect me a lot.
And like getting off work and then my friends, I was
How do you go back to
they would
normal?
page you, let's go to this club here. And I would go to the club and I just watched these people had regular jobs and I
Yeah.
just dealt with like
You're
some
trying to
crazy
recover.
stuff.
Right.
You know, sometimes dark and heavy. And you're just like, oh wow, you grow up really fast and you see
Wow.
you see the just the possibilities of like you sometimes think you take what you have for granted.
Right, right.
And I'd read a lot of their charts. Like if I would work on a schizophrenic unit,
Right.
which is they kind of house all of them depending on their
situation,
classifications,
condition, yeah.
you know, what's going on with them, diagnosis. And so I would work on like a schizophrenic unit. And some of them, like a lot of people can look like me or you. And usually schizophrenic hits around the 20s, usually. And so they've gone through this one girl was beautiful. She had her master's degree and all of a sudden schizophrenic hit her.
No.
And yeah. And now she's sitting there like kind of rocking and just watching TV and you're reading their charts and you're just going, you almost get like goosebumps
Wow.
and sad.
Oh my
and you're like, oh, wow, this is, you know, it's like, this can happen to anyone.
Wow.
Like you start thinking more because when you're young, you don't think about the future. You do crazy stuff, take all kinds of drugs and stuff because it's fun and you don't really consider what the risks are to a certain degree, even the way you drive when you're younger or whatever. You know, I still kind of drive like that now, but yeah, so, you know, there's just the reality of like life can change just like that. I mean, look at what's with, you know.
So you did that for a couple years. It
Yeah.
just kind of took its toll on you. You were just like,
Well,
like after a
yeah,
couple
it paid
years.
well. These were career jobs.
Of course.
So people
yeah.
were raising kids, they had retirement, they had health
But
care.
you have to start thinking about your own mental state at some point. And
Well,
maybe
it really wasn't a passion of mine yet. I felt I was too young. I didn't have enough life experience to
Right.
be dealing with this.
right, it was a lot. That sounds like a lot.
I was far away from thinking even having kids or anything, right? So to deal with this, I mean, you're literally in there, people that are vegetables, basically.
Right.
You work on a unit where it's grown men, you know,
Yeah.
or grown women. They separate them, and they're sitting there just rocking, and you have to take them. You have to change their diapers because they like vegetables. You have to feed them,
Yeah.
shaving them. I mean, it was very humbling.
That is humbling. That's very humbling.
And you get to see like what happened to them or whatever because they're wards of the state because their families can't take care of them anymore.
That's
and they're there alone. And sometimes
and you're human dealing with this.
well, and also like you see a lot of the other nurses that have been there a long time and they're like doing a lot of overtime and it could be very stressful. You know, because you could be feeding someone or whatever, and they just spit the food all in your face, and you're like, "Oh my god!"
Oh my gosh, are you serious?
You know, and you could be like on your second overtime or whatever, and you have issues at home, and a lot of times you see a lot of abuse.
Yeah.
You know, and it's very sad because you feel for the caregiver, but you also feel for like what this person. It's not fair. It's just not fair, and you realize life is not fair.
Right.
You know, and I was like, I don't want to be that person.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't want to lose, I guess, like your humanity or your kindness.
Did you feel like you were starting to lose that a little bit?
When you
maybe?
start not looking them as humans or less than normal humans,
Okay.
you can start feeling that.
I can see that.
I mean, when I first started, I remember I used to worry about like if their pillow was comfortable, just things like that. Because if I was in that position, like, well, maybe this
almost get
person's head's
desensitized.
crooked. I want to go over there and straighten it, maybe put a, you know, because you don't know what's going on, but you know what it might be for you.
Right.
And it could be because you trained and your neck is sore, so you're like
But at the
projecting
beginning,
too.
At the beginning,
you know?
you're thinking of those details, and then towards the end, you find yourself detaching a little bit.
You just wanted almost to get off work.
Maybe just
do
like as a
what
coping
you're
mechanism,
doing.
probably because it's so much. You're trying to cope with it.
It is.
Yeah.
It was a little heavy. It was very heavy. Yeah.
That's very heavy. But you went on after that to work in
Maximum security prison.
maximum security prison with rapists and murderers. So from one kind
Locked
of
situation.
very
Yeah.
kind of traumatizing scenario
Right.
to another.
Right. Well, because they were both state jobs.
Right.
And I was looking on the green sheet with all the state jobs.
This is a lot for you, though.
Yeah, on my break, I was looking in the nurses' station, the
Right.
office, of all the jobs that were available for the state, like even in nursing positions and stuff. And then I saw state corrections, law enforcement, and everything else. And I was like, ooh, this is similar. Wow, it pays a little bit more. And all my retirement and benefits in the state, healthcare transfers over, so I don't
So
lose
that's what
anything.
motivated you? You weren't.
Well, it sounded interesting too.
It sounded interesting too.
Yeah.
Okay, what sounded interesting about it?
It was maybe because law enforcement, I was young, the ego thing, the power thing.
Okay.
You know, you went to the police academy and all that. And then, you know, just growing up and where I grew up, I hung out with the breakdancing, a lot of gang members and stuff like
I
that.
get
So
you,
I was
okay.
familiar with that environment already.
Right. Okay.
You know, for me, it was like I wasn't an angel, but I definitely made sure I didn't take the risk where I was going to get caught and get arrested by a cop.
Right.
Not that I was afraid of the cops. I was afraid more
You knew
of my
how to
mom
not
than
get
the
caught.
cops. You know?
So, but you're in this new scenario, okay?
Right. So I went to the academy, went and worked in there, and that was talking about jumping from the pan to the fire.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
Actually, I was thinking
right.
you grew up with like in a certain area or an environment and
Right.
with gang members or whatever.
Yeah.
But nothing can prepare you for a maximum correctional facility.
No.
I can't imagine anything preparing you for that.
It's not, but I grew up around, like, where I grew up was a very interesting area. You had like the beach,
Okay.
which were like surfers and stuff,
Yeah.
and then you had a lot of farm
Okay.
area because Ventura is known for strawberry fields and orchards and stuff. So you had a lot of like first and second generation Hispanic migrants, right? And so the kids, it was like lowriders and stuff
Okay.
like this. You had surfers, lowriders, and then up on the hill, the ranches and stuff, you had the Hells Angels.
Mm-hmm.
And then so all the kids actually got along. It was very interesting. It was very eclectic. You know, Huntington Beach got that little
So
bit of
did
feel,
you
but we had it first. Even the way you dressed, it was
Yeah.
like, you know.
But after you got to the maximum correctional facility, did you feel like your life experience had prepared you for what you were entering?
I think so, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Because
So how long
as an athlete, you deal with a lot of bravado, ego, and you know, it interested me that someone can actually kill. You know,
That would.
But to me, I looked at it as weakness because I could kill, but it's like to me, it's harder not to a certain degree.
That's
You know what I
interesting.
mean? It's
I
so it didn't
don't, but I-
impress me that this guy killed 5 people. Because if
Right.
I was to get in a fight with the dude, I tell you, if I wanted to kill him, I could because I have skills.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With
Yeah.
my
You have
martial
a lot
arts
of
and
skills.
training and stuff. So it didn't really intimidate me.
You weren't intimidated.
No, I wasn't at all. And I knew the vibes. I knew if someone was just a big barker or not because I've been around
Right.
a lot.
Okay.
You know?
It sounds like this was actually in an interesting way. This is more of a comfortable situation for you to deal with than the mental health clinic.
Oh, for sure.
I feel
Yeah.
like you
For
sound
sure.
way more equipped for this.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it was much different because I felt like, okay, maybe these guys can get rehabilitation because these could be my friends and stuff. They just
I
made
get
bad
that.
choices. And not all of them were like murderers and stuff.
Right.
You had guys going in for Grand Theft Auto that got 3 to 5 years. And then all of a sudden they're getting in trouble in prison. Now they're doing 10 years.
But
you
your
know? So
social intelligence and your life experience has equipped you to be able to deal with these people. Not everybody could do this. You had a
Right.
very unique set of skills and experiences that allowed you to be able to navigate that in a way that most people wouldn't really be able to.
Yeah. And it was almost like a big play yard, to be honest, out in the streets,
Yeah.
out in the hood, you know?
Yeah.
And
But you got to go home,
yeah,
and they didn't.
right, right.
Yeah.
But it was
Yeah.
a lot of stuff that I knew. You know, I knew how to play dominoes, they call bones, and I
Right.
just knew the culture.
Okay.
and then also with the breakdancing and stuff,
Yeah.
the music, and
Yeah.
you know, and then like I said, I grew up with because it was
That's
like
so badass,
there was
by
like
the way.
Hell's Angels in there, white supremacists, and
Yeah.
so I was familiar with the Hell's Angel guys and stuff, and they could be racist, but when you're kids, you're playing with their kids, and they're not necessarily racist.
Interesting.
But you see the culture.
You see the culture.
Right, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of lost talent in prison. It's so sad.
So where along these lines you started training celebrities?
Well, I've always worked out. You know,
How did that happen? Because you
well,
were
with
training
martial arts, I would
Jean-Claude
watch.
Van Damme, and you trained.
everyone. Wesley Snipes, Mickey Rourke, you name it.
Tell me how
Charlie
that
Sheen.
started, because I'm curious.
Well, it started definitely from Gold's Venice.
Okay.
Well, Charlie actually, I think.
And when was this in your journey? Was this in the 90s? Was this
all the way through? All the
Okay,
way through.
from the 80s
My first
all the
client
way.
was Charlie Sheen.
Charlie Sheen was your first
I
client?
think 91.
Okay, so Charlie Sheen,
And
91.
A
That's
friend
when.
of mine, they called him Panther. He was actually pretty jacked, but he was kind of like fat, big.
Okay.
You know, but he was a martial artist, black guy. He had jerry curls. You know that back
Jerry
in the
curls,
day.
I do.
Yeah. and he had a little roofing company.
Okay.
And so he would hire me in the summer times, basically just to hang out, but
Uh-huh.
to do roofing, and in rich areas like Malibu.
Okay.
And then one time we did a house early in the morning before the sun, because you don't want to be there too hot in the middle of the
Right.
day. So you want to start early, right? Do the roofing and stuff. And so we were there before the crew got there, and we were up on the roof just checking things out. And then he was teaching me doing katas, right? Because he was a really good
Okay.
martial artist.
Okay.
And we're doing katas on top of the roof when the sun was coming up. It was really cool in Malibu.
It sounds
where we could see
amazing.
the ocean and everything.
Sounds
yeah, it was very
amazing.
zen, man. That was cool. I
Okay.
used to love going there. And then one day, some car comes up when we're on the roof doing that, comes up and parks and just sits there.
Okay.
Right? For like literally half an hour or 45 minutes.
Were you weirded out by that?
Huh?
Were you weirded out by
No,
that?
no, no. It was someone that lived
They
there.
were just wanting to enjoy the.
Right, but they were watching us. Right?
Okay, yeah.
And then the person gets out of the car, and it was Charlie Sheen.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was his dad's house
Okay.
in Malibu. And he
so
went to his
then-
dad's house, but it looked like he was pretty, like he just got back from
So
all-nighter,
then he said,
right?
I want to look like you. Can you train
So
me?
he talked to us. So he hired my boy Panther
Okay.
to do his martial arts, and he hired me to get him in shape.
Okay.
And that was one of my first clients. Wow. Yeah. Isn't that cool?
That is really cool. Yeah. So what?
And I was in shape back then too. I was like shredded, up on the roof. So he was probably going, whoa.
So there's
That's
a
pretty cool.
unique set of challenges when it comes to training celebrities. You're training them for movies and roles, and
Right.
they're not necessarily wanting to train. They're not necessarily going into it willingly, because sometimes they're doing projects and roles and things like that.
Yeah.
So tell me about some of the celebrities that you've trained and some of the challenges that you faced training them.
Luckily for my background, and when I worked in the prison and in mental health, I worked on the units a lot for drug addiction.
Okay.
It's one of my specialties.
And you experienced
of rehab.
that. Right.
Yeah, I was never addicted to anything.
No, you experienced that with your clients, is what I meant.
I got all the bad boys of Hollywood.
Right.
Literally all the guys that came out of rehab.
I was following that. I was following
Right.
where that was going. Yeah, I got it.
So fitness was their lifesaver, And I can party, but my fitness came first. If it was 2 a.m, I need to get sleep. I need to train. So enough, no more drinking or anything, And so I was like the designated person that
Yeah.
would pull him away from all the other influences that want him to go somewhere else afterwards. I would
That must
lie and
be
say, oh yeah, we'll meet you guys there. And I'd be driving because they're so wasted. And I'd just take them home. They were not going to remember.
So you kind of feel like you almost filled like a father figure role for some of these celebrities almost? Taking care of them, making sure that they were saving their lives, taking care of them, making sure that they were safe and got...
Well, a lot of
kind
them, most of them I pretty much respected because they have accomplished a lot,
Right.
and they had all the fame and money, and it was almost like I was protecting them.
So they leaned on you as like almost like a mentor, like, I don't want to say maybe not father figure, but sounds like you helped a lot of them with things that were beyond just the physical fitness part of it.
Oh, for sure. When you
know?
when you start getting close, training people, you get close to your
Oh,
clients.
you do. Oh, absolutely.
They're very loyal to you.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was kind of that experience where you don't take I never really care to take advantage of
Yeah.
it because I know it's all short term. You know, I
Right.
could definitely like screw them over or whatever, like most of them have.
But this is why
And
you
I
have such
see-
great relationships.
Right, long relationships. I call
relationships.
any of them now after 30 years and,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
get them to do something or say hi or go hang out like
Yeah.
time have never passed.
Right.
And that's what I try to do with most of my relationships is have that goodwill where I can actually make a call and say, hey, and I try to utilize it more for friends that are trying to get something going.
Yeah, yeah.
know?
I've experienced that with you, so I can definitely,
Yeah.
I feel that for sure.
Sometimes people get a little annoyed. Like my wife's like, Danny, you should probably take like a percentage or do something instead of just handing people over and connecting them, and you're not really asking for anything. You know, and I was like, yeah, but you know what? If
That's who
they do,
you
they
are.
do. You know,
Right.
that's not me. And hopefully, if I call them for something, they'll be there because they know either I'm going to hook them up with something, or you know, they have someone I can connect them with that they can help. You know, as
You have a big
favor to me.
Rolodex.
Yeah, and goodwill. You know, that's
Big
the
Rolodex
thing.
and goodwill. I like that.
It's all about the network. But I still have not. I have not really committed to really utilizing it.
Okay.
Like a lot of times people are like, oh, you should, some of these celebrities and high network people I work with, they look at my social media sometimes. They're like, with all the
Yeah.
people, you should have millions of followers.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, but I just can't commit to this social media thing. I'm kind of a private person
Yeah.
to a certain degree, and I like to enjoy the moment.
Yeah.
Like normally, I think a lot of people would set up their own camera so
Yeah.
they could film this and post it on their own stuff.
Yeah.
That's like the last thing on my mind.
I relate
you
to
know?
this too because you feel more comfortable like helping people thrive and excel, and you're not necessarily comfortable, pushing yourself up there.
Yeah.
And you deserve it. You've earned it. You have
Right.
you have everything it takes to be up there. But I'm kind of like this too, where I feel like so much more comfortable helping to boost other people up. And then you do realize at some point, like, gosh, did I miss an opportunity?
Yeah.
Did I miss something? Right?
I know.
But okay, you've made a lot of impact. Okay, and I want to talk a little
Yeah.
bit about. I know you worked for EAS, right?
Uh-huh.
And you were involved with the Body for Life Challenge.
Yeah, I was before then and during.
I
used
wanna-
to help judge the competitions. I literally killed my own contract to a certain degree. Because
How?
I was their biggest spokesperson. I was on the boxes.
I know.
I was on the trucks that delivered
Yeah.
it. I was on all the magazine covers, and then they signed Monica, and then she was,
Yeah.
helped blow the company up. And
So you said you judged. So you were actually.
well, after that campaign of, to a certain degree, I almost like people started thinking I was like part owner of the company because
Yeah.
they were using me so
You're
much.
such a spokesperson.
And I think the owner, Bill,
Right.
Bill Phillips, felt like, oh, which he has every right, because to a certain degree, what if they put me like in front, like their poster child, which I was, and all of a sudden I get arrested for,
It's
sex
hard.
trafficking or drugs or whatever.
Yeah.
That screws the whole company.
That's-
And we saw what happened with Jared with
with the
Subways.
subway. Oh,
Just
and
things
this
like
happens
that.
with people on social media too. If you have a big name represent your company, and then something happens to them,
Right.
that happens. But when you were on the back end and you were reading some of the
so
transformations,
he started that
yes,
as the new campaign.
right,
Like instead of just me, he was about people.
Right.
And he wrote the book. He's a great writer too, and he knew marketing, like very good marketing. And it wasn't about, because he did the before and afters. And before and afters, they were doing that in the late '80s. I was signed with I think not Twin Lab. There's another company, but they were Cybergenics.
got it.
I was signed with Cybergenics. They were doing the before and afters.
Got
and their company blew up. They
Right.
were the first to do the before and afters, before Photoshop. Right? So it's more real. Just lighting and positioning, you can
Don't
do
even
a
get me
lot.
started on that.
But at least it was more real than Photoshopping.
Right?
And so that company blew up because of before and afters, but Bill took the before and afters and then he included stories behind
Yes.
it, which took it to another level.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And you got to be one of the people that
we
read
would be
the stories.
sitting around the office, in Colorado,
Yeah.
the headquarters, and we'd be opening mail. Back then it was mail, there's no emails, right? Opening mail and taking people's pictures, reading their letters of what they went through.
I would love to do that.
And then we would decide. And it wasn't about who got in the best shape before and afters, because they probably weren't even in the middle. They were probably some of the worst ones. There was way better ones, but it was their stories.
The stories.
Yeah.
Any that you can remember?
There's a lot of overcoming cancer, I remember.
Cancer.
A lot of single parents, a lot of like deaths. They're overcoming death and depression. You know, a lot of stuff people face now. But so he picked the best stories. He would give out like Corvettes, like $25,000, and then you'd have a EAS leather jacket and a ring, which I got all that stuff.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and I had a cell phone from that company, like unlimited. That was like right when the flip phones came out.
That's a cool deal.
I remember I was on the toilet using that thing, and it was like $2 a minute back then. You know.
Good to know.
Actually, one of the managers called me and kind of checked me. I was like, "Yeah, you're using that phone quite a bit, buddy."
I needed that image. I needed that image.
You know, but I never had a cell phone. We had pagers before. We had to go to use your home line.
Yeah.
But that was the.
I'm starting to get an idea of how you've built so much resilience, because from your stint as in the mental health field as a nurse, to the maximum correctional facility, to really absorbing these stories in the EAS job that you worked in. And now, you're still taking off in your bodybuilding career. There's still something in you that you're feeling like maybe, unfinished business, right?
Yeah, and there was unfinished business before to a certain degree.
Right.
Because at a certain point you start realizing it's just how people are.
Right.
It was at a point where I was always still in great shape even after I stopped competing, and I'd start doing business and stuff, almost stayed away from the bodybuilding scene, because when you own gyms and you're trying to do business, that's your sole focus. I wasn't training as much, but I always made sure I had a certain level of fitness, just for my health and then also my athleticism. Because as a man, I just feel like you need to be very functional.
Right.
You still have to be able to protect, yourself and others. So that was always a concern. And so you had to have a certain amount of fitness, even if it wasn't just weightlifting to get jacked.
Tell me when you stopped bodybuilding, then because you came back onto the scene in 2010.
Yeah.
How long of a hiatus was there?
10 years?
10 years, okay. So you took
I actually was training a wealthy client of mine, got him ready to compete at the Venice Beach show. There was a show, Muscle Beach contest.
In between this hiatus that you were taking.
Yeah, towards the at the end of the hiatus.
Got it. Okay.
And so I got him ready for the competition. He looked great, and he was actually a surgeon.
Okay.
And
you were missing it.
And then what's that?
And you were missing it.
Little bit. I was always still going to Venice all the time, and so I got him ready for the show, and I went early in the morning with my coffee to the show when they're setting things up, and my client never showed. He had cold feet.
No.
And I was there, and then Ken, expediter, he's pictures and golds, Ken Keene. He was the expediter for all my shows starting out in my career, so he knew me very well. He's like, "Danny, what are you doing?" And I said, "Well, my client didn't show up." And he's like, "Jump in." I was like,
"No."
I'm like, "Dude, I don't have shorts." I did shave not too long ago because I did a photo shoot for my own product.
Shape?
Yeah, I always stay lean. I always stay lean. But I wasn't focused on bodybuilding.
Did you do it?
Yeah, I said, "I don't even have shorts, dude." And I was like, "It's just another show." He goes, "No, this is not just another show. This is the Lifetime Achievement Award for Joe Weider. Arnold's actually going to hand his award out here."
What?
And he's like, "You should do the show because the press is going to cover it, the newspaper." And I was like, "Oh, I'm already here." And I knew I was kind of in shape.
Wow.
I haven't ate a bunch of shit already. I haven't even eaten yet, so I was still pretty tight in the morning, and I had coffee. So he found me some shorts and trunks. He goes, "Get in there." And I was like, "Oh."
And it was like physique? So you had shorts?
No, bodybuilding.
Oh, so you trunks, like bodybuilding trunks.
Yeah.
You said shorts, so I was thinking
that was before physique.
I was going to say, that was way before physique. Yeah. Okay,
and so I did the show and I won the whole thing.
That's crazy. So you got the Lifetime Award and you got the press.
No, Joe Weeder did. Joe Weeder
got
was there,
so Joe Weeder got the Lifetime Award. You got all the press.
I won the whole thing.
You won the whole
so
thing.
I was in the papers.
You're in the papers.
Along with it.
Okay. So you got bit again.
Yeah, and that was a different trophy than an NPC trophy.
Yes.
You know, it was I think AAU or something like that.
Yep.
You know, and it was really cool. I had an eagle and it was big.
Yeah.
And I was like, and it was Venice Beach, which is cool because it was like, you know, Venice Beach is my foundation.
But then you're thinking, what if I actually train for this?
Yeah.
Right?
So that's exactly what I did. I remember I was in the gyms and, you know, my wife was working a lot. And that wasn't her passion. You know, I thought I was going to create a machine, you know, like a business, a gym where we get it up and going, makes us money, and we could do what we want. She could do her music. Yeah. But it's going to take a lot of work. And it was just taking a long time, you know, because you find out like a brick and mortar, a business, even if it's successful, it's like a child.
Right.
You could go away somewhere and something could happen. You have to come back and it just keeps dragging you back in.
So when you decided to start your bodybuilding career, you and your wife had
I
a
remember
gym.
a lot of these young guys would train at my gyms early in the morning and they were winning shows. And I'm looking at them going, oh my God.
So your gyms multiple? You had multiple gyms?
Yeah, unfortunately.
How many did you have?
3.
3 gyms?
I had 3 gyms, yeah.
What?
And
what was it called?
which they were all different names.
They were all different names?
Yeah. One was Cardio Flex, one was Fitness 101, and what was the last one?
So you and your wife are running all these gyms together?
Yeah, and not necessarily all at the same time. We opened different ones, sold one to a partner because it's just too much hassle, found a better location, some investors.
Okay.
And, you know, you learn a lot. And I actually opened my first gym for inventing fitness equipment.
Got it.
That's how I got interested in the gym. So I invented a fitness equipment, and I used to have, you know, a contract with Weeder products. I did all their home equipment line. I was on all the box covers that went out to the sporting goods stores. And I looked at their equipment and I go, God, this stuff sucks. I said, I would research it and I'm like, I could
do
make
better than
this.
this.
Yeah, so I started sending stuff out to China and looking at it and stuff. And then I would
better
look at some of the gym equipment and I think this could be made better. I got all into that.
Yeah.
And so I would take an old piece of equipment, buy it from some of those used stores, sporting goods stores. I would cut it and weld it, re-weld it and position it. And they were good. I made like a lunge machine. Well, I knew how to weld and stuff already, yeah.
What
and
do you
upholstery.
not know how to do?
Well, I grew up, I knew how to weld good enough where I could piece it together.
Wow.
And then when it was good, I would send it to someone to do it for real.
Okay.
But I grew up around my neighbor, one of my best friends, his father was the president of the Duke's Car Club, which was a lowrider, hot rod car club, biggest in the United States. So there was always guys over chopping and welding and doing upholstery and customizing cars. So I got to kind of see all that.
So when you reworked these machines and you made them more, you know, ergonomically correct, right? For you to be able to get results.
Kind of how the industry's going now. I was doing that way before. So an equipment that didn't exist yet. So I made like a lunge machine, one of my first ones. And I actually took pieces from the real gym equipment, used the same gauge, painted it the same. I even took the stickers off and put it on there. And I would set up a meeting with these companies. And the owners knew me because they thought maybe I wanted to endorse their products, you know, the product line. So they take meetings with me. And I would say, well, no, I actually have a piece of equipment. And they're like, oh, okay, just send it to us, you know. I said, well, actually, I made it. And I'd have it right there in the meeting room. And then they were like, okay, where's it? I said, it's right there. And then like Russ, the owner of Vicarian, would look at it and he looks at his R&D guy. He's like, that's not one of ours? Like he literally thought it was one of theirs in the office. Yeah. I'm like, no, I made that. And then and he's like, okay. Because I knew they didn't have a vision if I was to draw it or just make a half-assed
So where did it go from there?
It looked just like theirs. So they can see that if they make it, this, you know. And so they got on it, his R&D guy got on it, and he's like, well, this is good. And so I licensed it to them. I patented it and I licensed it to them.
Really?
Yeah, and instead of taking all money, I took some money and they gave me a shitload of gym equipment. And that's when I opened my first gym.
That is awesome.
Yeah, I should have took the money and bought houses.
Oh man, you see
Looking back at it now, because my brother was a cop and he was killing it in the housing market when it was before 08
but you
when
had a vision
it was going up.
But you also were driven by passion. You had a vision and a dream. You wanted a gym. You had a vision in your mind that you and your wife
I
would have
think
a
some of it
gym.
has to do with my ADHD sometimes, where
Okay.
I'm kind of all over the board, but when I lock in something, I'm locked in.
Right. I've done projects with you. I've
Mm-hmm.
done commentating with you and everything, and you're really good at everything that you do. But it must be
Yeah.
difficult when you feel like you have so many things running through your mind at once.
It is. I feel like I can't shut it off. The only time I shut it off if I really just go full force into something. Then I'm super focused. Like I will literally, if I'm arranging furniture or something, it's not really OCD, but it's just like,
You know you
okay,
need to focus.
let's see how it looks over here. And I'll move the whole freaking gym or whatever. Like I've done that many times.
Yeah.
I'll be up at 3 a.m. at my gym.
Yeah.
Because I think, what if people walk this way in the flow? I've never
Yeah.
really seen a gym do it. And instead, I just get so caught up thinking I said, you know what? I need to do it because I've thought about it now. I'm moving all this equipment. And
Yeah.
people would think, you're crazy. And I'd look at it, I'd actually walk in. I get so fixated on doing something to completion.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is a good thing, but if you're doing focus on the wrong thing, it could be a freaking lot of waste of time.
Or if you don't have something
Yeah.
to focus on.
Yeah,
Like
but
if
if it's
you have a-
nonsense, you're focused on nonsense.
Right. You have a period of time when you don't know exactly where to
but
put
that's
that
why,
focus.
like, when I get
that could
caught,
be,
like, in a piece of equipment,
Yeah.
and I'll go, oh, I can make that better, and then I
Get
get that
obsessed
stuck in
with
my mind. Yeah, I'll go and buy one. I'll try, and I
Yeah.
have to finish it through so that it stops.
Yep.
So it helps a lot in sports because, like breakdancing, I have to get it perfect. I'll watch videos. We had the
Mm-hmm.
VHS. I would watch like guys from the East Coast over and over and over again, and I have to get it correct. And then when I got it correct, I would do it better. So it was almost like really hyper focused.
Yeah.
And then when it's not, I'm kind of all over the board.
Right.
Almost to the point where it freezes me, where I know how to make all these calls.
This makes
and
sense.
It's like, ugh, which call do I? And I'll procrastinate.
Yeah.
But then when I make a call, I'll get so into it.
Yeah.
That call is like, turns out to be a big deal because it was supposed to be just a little call, but I engaged so much that it turns into an opportunity, but I just didn't make all these other calls all day. So now I started to learn to get just one or two things done.
This makes so much sense, by the way.
Yeah.
In just the conversations I've had with you and just, knowing you as long as I have, what you're telling me right now, it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
I feel like I have learned so much about just you as a person. I mean, it's amazing. Yeah. So you have that obsessive quality to you that is ascribed, probably linked to maybe what you would, say is
ADHD.
ADHD.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. You have, I want to kind of enter into and want to kind of.
And I learn best when I actually do it.
Right.
Like
yeah.
going to school or academy, it just sounds like blah, 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 because my brain is thinking about something else.
Now, we don't have to talk about your whole bodybuilding career or anything like that, because we know that you're so successful. But what I do want to talk about, okay, is when you came back to the stage in 2010 and you won your pro card, you felt like, okay, there's some unfinished business. But 6 years went by where you were technically competing as a pro, where it was like, Danny Hester, he's so amazing, but like there's just not a category for him.
Right.
What do we do with this amazing physique? You were marketable, people loved you, amazing physique. What are we gonna do with this guy? 2016 comes along.
Yeah.
What happens? Classic physique.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. I wanna know who was in your ear about that and what drove you to go, this is mine.
I was a little skeptical at first because they had the men's physique.
You're like, too many categories.
And yeah, I remember,
Yeah.
I think they did the men's physique in 2010 or 11.
Physique,
13
men's
maybe?
physique was 2011.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think I was doing a show at the time, and Jim came up to us at the athletes meeting.
Right.
And he announced it. And I remember I couldn't comprehend it. I'm just thinking, I kind of laughed a little bit, and he looked around to see who laughed because he was like, he was going to do this, so he didn't want any people talking shit. And I was like, oh, he's serious about this.
Yeah.
I remember I was like, whoa.
He is serious.
I'm glad I did it like on the download, like laugh, because I'm like trying to hide. I saw how mad he got. And then they came out with the men's physique, and then it got really popular. And it took me a while to kind of, I'm like, God, they're kind of diluting the bodybuilding.
Because you were competing in the 80s when it was a totally different world.
there was no divisions.
No, yeah.
Yeah, no classes.
No.
Even in bodybuilding. And so the thing is that I would have been just happy to a certain degree if there was no divisions and I was a bodybuilder and I was a pro. Because as a pro, the pro shows, you didn't have to qualify to a pro show. You can just walk. So they had guys that shouldn't be on stage in the pros, even in the 80s. They were in great shape, but maybe not proportionate, even tiny guys. But back then, if you were good, no matter how small you were, you had Flavio. I don't know if you remember him.
I do.
He was like 4'5".
Oh, Flavio. Oh,
he beat Lou Ferrigno.
I remember the Flavio and Lou Ferrigno duel-off was iconic.
So the judging was judged based on the quality of the overall package, not how big you were.
Yeah.
And when I kind of dropped out is when I wasn't getting as much work being marketable because they were going for the freaks.
Right.
Like you had to be over 290 to even get a contract or recognition.
Right.
You know, and
so when they announced the classic physique,
excuse me, when they did the men's physique, I was like, you know, and it got really popular. But then the physiques were getting better. Yeah. That's one thing. And they started getting
because you probably would have done well in that division too.
Well, the physiques were getting better where I was like,
yeah.
Okay, this is not like some swimsuit model now.
Yeah, because Jeremy Buendia was coming out and you were like, I could do this.
Yeah. And they were getting, the upper bodies are actually looking good.
Yeah, for sure.
And so for me, I was like thinking about it. And I remember my friend Stan McQuay was a pro bodybuilder. He actually did the 202s. He was the first to win the 202s. And then they had the 212s and got rid of the 202s. And I looked at him and I'm like, if you ever... I'll do it if you do it. The board shorts. Yeah. Right? Men's physique. And so he never did it. And then they came out with the classic. And
so did you ever do physique?
No.
I didn't think so.
No.
I didn't think so.
So I held off because I told him if he did it, I would do it.
And he didn't,
He's gonna
so you
go
didn't
first.
do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, you know, because we come from more of the old school.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I was like current, you know, with the younger guys, I have no problem jumping into it. But I just felt like it was like, blasphemy to a certain degree, right?
I get it.
Bodybuilding blasphemy. But the physiques got better. So then I started thinking, okay, maybe I can beat these guys if I'm covered up halfway, because some of the upper bodies were looking good. And then, so Stan never did it, because I said, if you do it, I'll jump in. He never did. And then they came out with Classic, and then he did that. And I'm like, okay, I'm in. You know, and I remember Robin, the promoter of the Olympia at the time, when they first were announcing it, he came to me and says, Danny, you should probably, because he knows how kind of lackadaisical I am with my training. I kind of train when I want, I jump around. I'm not super serious. I don't carry my Tupperware of food around, but I know what I need to do.
We've talked about this.
I've just not been very orthodox like the bodybuilding lifestyle.
We have this in common. We've talked about this.
Right. Yeah. And so Robin's like, maybe this is a time, this opportunity. I'm really serious about this, Danny. He's like, if you pretend to be a bodybuilder for a little bit, you have a good shot at this.
Yeah.
You know? And when he told me that, I was like, this is the promoter of Olympia. And he took the time to actually recognize me and tell me to take it seriously. And I was like, okay.
That meant a lot to you.
It really did. And I respect Robin. He was Flex's manager. He's done a lot in the industry. He was the promoter of the Olympia at the time.
It hit
and he
you,
came up
and
to
you
me.
were like,
yeah, I really appreciate that he actually thought so much of me. You know, I could possibly do that. And he also made a comment about, I have the history in the sport of that.
Yes.
So if they were to choose someone, it's not going to be some new kid. You know, it's going to be someone with history in it as classic.
Can I tell you my observation experience about you really fast?
Yeah.
I remember when you came out and you won the first Classic Physique title at the Olympia, and knowing your history, knowing how long you'd been in the industry, it was like it could not have been anyone better to win that first title. It didn't even have to be any more titles, and we're going to talk about that because I know there was some obstacles that you overcame after that. But I just want to say, just from my standpoint, somebody who's also been in the industry for a long time, it was so amazing to see you all that time, 30 years, you know, in the making, taking a hiatus, coming, getting your pro card, then 6 years later, winning the first Classic Physique title. That was amazing. And it had to be so weighted for you to feel that title after having so much experience in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot to it because my mom was so busy, and unless it was a team sport, she would show up. So like individual stuff, not so much, and we didn't really mind, honestly, because it wasn't like she was our dad to a certain degree.
You didn't mind, but you probably wanted her there. Maybe.
Yes and no.
Okay.
Sometimes you had the freedom of not having them there.
I get you.
They didn't have to worry about you. You didn't have to look to see if you're performing. You can just be you.
You're in your own world, yeah.
Right, and it was just like the other kids and stuff like that, and so it always made you feel a little bit more of an underdog too, because you're there by yourself.
You like being an underdog.
I do, and so she never went to any bodybuilding show ever, and it was in Vegas, and I invited her, and my sister wanted to go, so they went. She sat front row at the Olympia, first show bodybuilding she's ever been to. First show, right? I win.
You're gonna make me cry.
Yeah. And so I look out, and I've known Jay and all those guys that have won it, but I've always seen the medal up on their wall, framed. Until I won one, it was like, wow, this is heavy. This is like, I was holding it. I remember holding the medal, and I look out, and my wife and my mom were sitting there crying. Yeah.
How did that feel?
It was, it should have felt better, but it felt like it was my ADD, I think, was all over the place and not so much in the moment where I started thinking, fuck, what am I going to do next? Am I going to do this next year?
You're already thinking about that on stage?
On stage.
When you're looking at your mom and your sister, you're thinking about what am I going to do next?
Yeah.
Really?
Where I should have been thinking,
you should have been in the moment. And
this is, what more could I have in my career? That was it.
Wow.
Even when Bob was interviewing, Bob Cicciarello, I wasn't even listening to what he was saying.
Okay, well, if that's the case, okay, well then let's take you after you win the title. All the pressure. Because guess what? You're the standard now. Everybody's going, Danny Hester is the standard for classic physique. I can't even imagine how that feels, and most people will never experience this.
I'll tell you a story that adds to that real quick.
Okay.
I was driving back, back to LA from Vegas with the trophy and full belly and everything. We were happy, They win a lot of money. I wish they could retro pay me for what it was back then. It keeps going up now.
I know.
But so I was driving back and I get a call from Sean Ray. And Sean Ray was there at the judges when they were talking. And he told me, he's like, Danny, there was some question about maybe having you win because the sport wants younger people involved with social media and stuff. We'd like to get younger guys. And how old were you when you won the title? 47.
Wow.
And I think the guy that took second was in his 20s, Arash. And so they were talking about like, they're probably going to give it to someone younger. Sean told me this. He's like, you better come in like beyond belief.
Yeah.
Because you're not. He literally just straight out told me or else you're not going to win next year. He's ruthless. But Sean's my boy. But he says whatever he feels.
He says the truth, and some people like it, some people don't. I like it.
Right. Exactly.
I do. Right. I really like that.
He doesn't mince words.
No.
Doesn't mean he's right, but he'll tell you what he's heard or what he feels.
I wish more people would say what's on their mind. To be honest.
And there was a lot of truth to it.
Right.
And I kind of knew that. And to a certain degree, I was thinking in my head, driving back after I got off the phone with him, and I was thinking, that was hard. Getting ready for that show, I was like almost in another dimension, just emotionally and spiritually, because your hormones,
everything
the dieting. I went freaking
surface.
hardcore with that.
Yeah.
I've never gone that strict before in my life.
I have a question for you. Okay, looking back.
Yeah.
Do you regret not living in the moment more because
for
you won the title, and it's almost like you were so busy thinking about what's next that it doesn't seem like you allowed yourself to soak and relish the fact that you were Mr. Olympia.
Right.
That's a crazy. And now looking back, it's like, do you wish you could almost like go back and just really just?
Oh, for sure. Because there's a few things because it wasn't open bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And to me, I didn't know that division was going to be probably one of the most popular divisions in the sport, especially with CBUM killing it.
So popular.
So I didn't know if it was just going to be on 2 or 3 more years. So I didn't know the validity of it. Being the first one, and it was going to be so popular.
There's a lot of hindsight here. I do. Yeah,
so it was like, I could have been the classic Olympia winner, and that lasted 5 years in the sport. And so, I wasn't really sure. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So part of me was still doubting the significance of
Yeah.
it. But now looking back, that the sport's here to stay. It's only getting better.
Hindsight is always 20/20.
Right,
We
right.
always
But
look
that
back
affected
and,
me, you know, because of my history. Maybe if I didn't have the history and I was some young guy that just did it, I would have been more like, ooh, cool.
You know what I feel like, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I feel like it would affect me more to know that I didn't allow myself to soak it in as much as I wish I would have,
Yeah.
versus feeling like, you know, down that maybe I didn't win it again. Like the fact that I didn't, I would look back and think, what about you?
Well, I made the conscious choice, you know, I haven't admitted it a lot, but when Sean called me and told me that, I had to think, I said, I'm not young anymore. Winning that show, I put everything in it wiped me out. And people have to realize when you go that hardcore,
Right.
especially as you get older, one show is not equivalent to one show.
Right.
I believe it's equivalent to maybe 4 or 5 shows as far as the wear and tear on your body. When you're younger, it's not as doesn't affect you because you can recover. So for me, I was like, okay, now I'm gonna do it a year later. Some of the injuries that I really went and dealt with and stuff, and still was able to, you know, persevere. Boy, I don't know, mentally, and plus with my wife, I already won. I was like, what am I chasing now?
Yeah.
Am I gonna give up and age my body 5 more years or so to get another trophy, to get another title?
Legitimate questions to ask yourself.
Or am I gonna really travel all the world? I got offered to go India, China, everywhere, you know, guest pose and seminars and stuff, or make money and really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because the next year, if I don't place even, no one's gonna ask me to do this shit.
Right.
So I made that decision. I'm like, yeah, I think I kind of made the decision. So I kind of just coasted, to be honest, to the next show. As a matter of fact, one of my old clients, Mickey Rourke, an actor, I saw him at another gym,
Okay.
and I haven't seen him in like 3 years.
Mickey Rourke was your client, of course.
Yeah, so I haven't seen him in like 3 or 4 years. And I was at the gym in Sunset, Equinox,
Okay.
right, with another friend of mine. And so he was there, and I haven't seen him so long. And then my friend said, you know, Danny won the Classic Mr. Olympia. He's like, and I showed him pictures. He was so proud of me. As a matter of fact, I was getting a case, so I had my medal with me.
Yeah.
I ran down to the car, brought it up, and I showed it to him. He was just so blown away.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because he knows how long, because I trained him in the 90s with Flex and all those guys, and you know, and so he was just so proud. And then he was like, Danny, I need to get in shape for this movie that I'm doing. I think he was doing, I forgot what movie it was, but he had to get in really good shape. And he's like, let's train together and this and that. I'll even pay you whatever. You know, my car's in the shop or whatever, and you know, if you pick me up, I'll pay for gas. You know, so I said, okay, cool. So I started training with him. This was earlier on. As it got closer to Olympia, I had to, I was going, dude, I can't train with Mickey for the Olympia.
Right.
I got to go in there with the boys and go Gold's Gym and train, get real serious, you know?
Yeah.
I got to drive and pick him up in Beverly Hills area and then drive to Gold's, and that's like half the day already, you know?
It only took you, 35 years to become an overnight success?
Yeah, something like that, to a certain degree, right. And then so
people are seeing you as the first ever, and so for a lot of people, especially new in the industry, they don't realize the history that you've had.
Yeah,
you're
a lot of
in the
them don't.
current generation, so they're like,
Right.
okay, what's Danny Hester going to do next? Because they don't realize
Right.
you've already been through however many generations to get here.
Of athletes and you know, the industry,
Right.
Not just the body, the whole industry, from
whole
supplements
industry.
to equipment to
Yep.
you name it. And then so I was enjoying training with Mickey, and I knew it was really motivating him. It was keeping him off of partying and stuff like that, because like I said, a lot of these guys, that's their savior. If they're not in the gym, I remember his manager one time called me and said, Danny, Mickey's just too big. Can you guys stop training so much and taking gear and being a bodybuilder? He's not going to get any roles. I remember that year that he said that, and I said, listen, David, his manager at the time, either he's going to be doing this with me and maybe limiting his roles, or he's going to be in a club doing shit he shouldn't, getting arrested or whatever.
You're helping
which
him.
is more productive, you know what I mean? So, and then that was the year he got the wrestler, and he was already big and jacked for it.
That's awesome.
He didn't even have to get ready for it, and he almost won the Oscars, you know?
Danny,
So
that's amazing.
So when I won the Olympia and I trained with him, I was going to tell him I can't train with him anymore.
Yeah.
I have to train myself and get serious. But part of me was like, at this point, I might be past the point anyways now. A lot of makeup where I needed just not to get where I was. I need to go beyond that because I know Breon, these guys are coming with it. And I was like, you know what? Screw it.
Yeah.
I said, I'm going to enjoy these moments with Mickey and the bonding that we're having. And I trained with them for that Olympia.
It was worth it.
I ended up taking 5th.
But it was worth it.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. You know?
You're creating so many memories, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's about relationships and building and, you know.
I think that you're,
So.
in a way, it almost made up for the fact that you didn't totally let yourself enjoy your Olympia victory. It's almost like you took a step back and really soaked in things that were really important to you.
Yeah.
And maybe it didn't land.
And I think like what you were talking about, I like being the underdog. I wasn't the underdog anymore.
And
I
you
was
didn't
the
like
champ.
that. Interesting.
I kind of didn't like that.
That's interesting. It's an uncomfortable position for you to be in.
I would rather been Breon taking 4th and wanting to prove like I could beat these guys.
Right.
Which he did.
Right.
You know.
But you're running out of real estate because now you're 5th and now you're like 48 and you're going, okay. And it's not that you're too old to be amazing, but we're talking about winning the Olympia title.
Right.
And that's a whole nother, so some people say, oh, 48's not old to be competing. My cousin, we're talking about the best in the world.
Right. And
That's a different
each year
level.
the bar gets higher.
Higher and higher.
These guys are like,
I know.
bringing it, man.
It's
younger and younger too, which I'm not a big fan of. I think a lot of them slow down, slow your roll.
Yeah.
You know, because you'll get there, you'll get your best physique with less damage.
Yeah.
Because you're going to regret it. You know, some people ask me, oh, what do you think about this person doing this well, so young? Doing that young does not impress me. As a matter of fact, it actually is a little sad for me because I'm thinking I'll be impressed if they can actually even get on the Olympia stage in their 50s.
That actually leads me right into the question that I want to ask you.
And healthy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know.
This is what we're doing this for. This is leading me into the next question. In you making your mark, I want to start with a lot of younger athletes. They look up to you, they watch you, they see your journey, they see how long it took you to get your pro card and then to win the Olympia title. Some people, they do the sport for like 1 or 2 years and they feel like they've been doing it for so long and they want to quit because it's not. So what would your advice be to somebody who maybe feels impatient and is not getting what they want as fast as they want it, and then look at your journey? What would you say to them?
Well, it is way different now because even I feel it myself because of social media.
That's true.
Back then, you didn't really know what was going on. You had to wait every other month for the magazines to come out to see what was going on, who was good. Oh God, who this guy? I just did really well at the nationals as a middleweight.
Yeah.
This guy's a middleweight too. I was like, oh, geez.
You have some compassion for maybe where they're coming from.
Well, it took longer.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
You weren't in it. Like you could see every day some new dude popping up from, Saudi Arabia or freaking wherever. Asia. Some of these guys from Asia now are like, what the heck are they doing out there? These guys are crazy looking. I'm part Asian, but man, you're going to see some champs come out of there. I mean, you saw in the Middle East, they're killing it, right? A lot of guys.
Oh, yeah.
Asia's killing the new, freaks coming out. I guarantee you.
But patience.
But yeah, so what's happening is you're seeing so much at you. Right. You feel like you have to be current right away. So
that's true.
2 or 3 years to them was probably back then with us, like not getting as much information and having more patience because we weren't getting as much information. We were focused more on ourselves in our little pool, getting accolades.
Maybe it would be like 10 years back then?
Yeah, not quite 10, but yeah. So it's like dog years in a way, right?
Yeah, I get it.
Nowadays. So I could totally see that because I feel that for myself.
That makes sense.
I think without social media, I think I might push a little harder, but at a certain point I'm going, it's a lot of work, man. I don't want to jeopardize my future. Like, I still want to look good in 10 years, you know?
Yeah.
And then especially now you go online and you see guys doing posts and then you had no idea this guy's on dialysis. And he just said, I'm like, shit, I didn't know you were on dialysis. Like, you still look good. I would never have thought that until this dude just told me that on his social media. I'm like, oh, that's crazy. He's like 40 years old.
It's almost like you want to tell them, think about your health first. But it's hard to even say that when, you're actually overpowered by the obstacle of people wanting the now and being, inundated with the shiny object. I want that. I want that. How do you even?
There's people, you know, with my background with dealing with people with addiction issues.
Right.
There's that element also.
Right.
Because they would be looking from something else to kind of get crazy with, right?
Right.
So it just happened to be, you know, the anabolics or the supplements.
What would your
for
best
competition.
advice be to them? Just understanding maybe the compassion you have for the era we're living in, the fact that you know, you're aware that maybe things are different now than they were then, but still, even still,
it's gotta be a sport where it refines you. I always say
it refines you.
Don't let the sport define you, but let it refine you. Big difference, you know. And that's what I do. If I do it, it's gonna be because I improved. When I went that balls to the wall and went that hardcore for the Olympia and I won, I would have been just as proud if I would have took 5th going that hard, because it was about me. I never went that hard before or was that disciplined.
Well, we know because you like to be the underdog.
Right. But I went so hard where I would be sitting in my car like almost like delusional because I was so wore out at the end of the day just to go back in the house. You know, I knew I still had to do cardio and eat, and I just really pushed myself where it could be. I'm already ahead of schedule, so I'm not going to do it, but I got myself to do it. Like all the little like, oh, you don't need to do that and blah, 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 all the things I used to have before because of good genetics.
And in a way,
I didn't care about my genetics. I needed to put the work in.
The work.
And I was proud that I did and went that hard. So
this is a refining moment for you.
Winning just really just showed that that's a result that can happen because of that. But even if I took 5th, I still would have achieved so much because I proved to myself I could be that disciplined person.
I love that.
Yeah.
It refined you.
And that was something that was always missing because I got by on my genetics a lot. You know,
this was your kind
I can
of
get ready for a show, like I said, just walk in and start winning shows.
Isn't that amazing when you do something for the first time, like you are overcoming this obstacle that you've never overcome, like you've relied on your genetics, and now for the first time you're digging deeper than you've ever dug before, and you get rewarded for it. That's like the best, you know?
And in that way, with my mom being there, it was like, you couldn't
amazing.
write a script like that, to be honest with you.
In terms of moving forward, what you have planned in your future, you have done a lot, okay? You have definitely
In certain arenas, yeah.
So what's next for you?
Right now I'm doing a lot of executive protection.
Okay.
And I went to some of the top academies for that stuff. With really high quality people, guys for special forces, you know, retired FBI and law enforcement. It was tough. It was in San Antonio, Texas. It was pretty badass. I almost tapped out on the swim part. Like,
You?
Yeah, I don't
Really?
float. And we had to do like rescue bodies, you know, because if you're protecting some billionaire on a yacht, he falls over, you got to jump in. You better know how to rescue him.
Jeez.
For me, I might just like throw a life buoy because until I get better at that. But it really like gave me like, okay, this is a skill set that I need to practice on just to get good at. Because what if, you know, I think part of me, because a good friend of mine passed away during COVID, big guy, wrestler Shad, he drowned during the riptides. Remember in Venice?
I do remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was during COVID. There wasn't enough lifeguards around. He always goes out. He's from the islands. Shad's like 6'7", jack, lean, great athlete. He was out there with his son, and they had the rip currents coming in, and his son was getting pulled in, and the lifeguards didn't have enough lifeguards, and they saw him. They came with a little, you know, speed thing and jet ski, and they came to him. He's like, no, get my son first. And they went and got his son. They came back around. He was gone.
Oh, man.
Yeah, we went out with his family all week, every morning till night.
Yeah.
And then a week later, right where we were all day with his wife and kids, she called like 2 a.m, said the body came up and he drowned.
Gosh.
And so for me, that was like in the back of my head too, doing these drills of diving down, picking up weights and trying to breathe and come down, you know, having your hands tied, just so many things. Like, it's basically they condition you for stress, how to deal with stress and still function.
You had a real stressful situation that was being brought up in your training too.
Part of me.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I don't know if I told you, but my dad owned a lot of property, and they actually were going to buy property in Malibu because they bought in Ventura County, and they were going to buy in Malibu. But my mom had a dream that one of the kids drowned, so they never bought property, beachfront in Malibu. I was like, I'd be worth millions now if you did, you know. But it's interesting because that water thing comes back around.
Yeah, it does.
You know, and I was, and I don't. It takes a lot of energy for me to swim. Like I literally have, because I don't float. And this one guy that was doing the drills, this big black guy, retired cop, he actually drowned. And they have guys on the side, so he didn't make it, and they jumped in, and he pretty much like, you know, spit water out and everything. So he was out.
Oh my gosh.
So it was really mentally like, ooh, I don't want to be that guy, but boy, that was the hardest part. We got attacked by dogs. You know, we had to do like situational stuff while dogs are attacking us. We had the suits on, so just all the stress. It was cool. I love that experience.
Yeah. Well, so you know, talking about the advice you would give to, you know, to people who look at your journey, and then hearing some of the things that you've been doing since your last bodybuilding show, it's like it's pretty insane. And moving.
So I have to go to another country next week to deal with some billionaire that he feels I got to protect the family and himself.
So moving forward, you're going to continue obviously traveling, working with celebrities, I'm sure. And it sounds like on the hunt for how you can use your set of skills and experiences and gifts to impact the world.
But it all comes down to my fitness. It all comes from fitness. Everything from you know, overcoming bullies, because I knew I was very athletic.
Yeah.
So this guy might be bigger, but he's gonna have a hard time if he wants to bully me. You know, and I can always get away because I'm fast. So I wasn't too worried. You know what I mean? And I was a good talker too.
So would you say
it was all with fitness, with the breakdancing, with everything, and even now, you know, doing the executive protection for very high net worth people and stuff. It's about your presence, and fitness comes, you know, and that's how you make confidence. That's how you make the connection with people. Mm-hmm. It's the connection, because everyone wants to get in shape. You can't really buy it. You know, so I'll be dealing with some billionaire.
Would you say though that your connection to people has mainly been because not just that you're fit, but the fitness that you have has given you so much confidence?
Yeah.
And you feel like you can protect yourself. You feel like you feel like nobody can intimidate you. You feel like nobody can disrespect you.
So I feel in a way
you're in a very like supreme
people that are very
position.
successful, like billionaires. They have a certain amount of awe and respect. I feel like I'm a billionaire in fitness.
Of course.
Like, no matter how rich they get, they're not going to be me, and they respect that and they admire it, just like we admire people that are successful in certain things. You know, and even when they find out like my age and stuff, it's even more, because now I get, you know, all the demographics, the older people that get inspired and the younger people, you know, they don't care how old I am. They just know I look good and I'm jacked and I can still function.
Yeah.
You know, so I would like to do more athletic stuff, you know, and post it. Yeah. Because I work with a lot of MMA guys, UFC guys.
You're
like
a walking Lamborghini.
Yeah, so far. I feel some training, and you know, I've changed my training around a lot. Listen, I don't take chances. I was doing shoulders the other day and I felt some impingement. I was like, okay, we're done with shoulders.
Well, you know what, Danny? It is so fascinating to get inside of your mind and to hear some of the things that you've done, because I know we haven't even...
That was just one personality you talked to. I got 3 more.
I bet. You have so many.
Batteries in that thing?
You have so many.
Wait until you meet my other personality.
Oh yeah?
I'm just kidding.
I'm like, we have some other things that maybe we'll dive into.
That's right.
But Danny, honestly, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
It's been amazing.
You know, you told me that, you know, Breon and Sean were on the show.
Yes.
You know, so I felt sorry for you. So I was like, you know, I'm going to go on her show and help it out.
We're going to make sure we don't cut that out.
Yeah, get some quality people.
Okay. I'll let them know you said that.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll know.
They'll find out.
At least tell Sean.
Yeah.
We're always digging at each other.
No, I love the community of you know, awesome people here. We have a great network in Southern California. I love it. Yeah. And I love getting to know you more, Danny. So honestly, truly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. You have made your mark. You're continuing to make your mark. And that's exactly what this is about. And the world appreciates you for it. So thank you.